Welcome to Bevin, a femme over 40 and her friends podcast. I'm Bevin, and I'm here with the one and only Jeffrey Marsh.
Hi, I'm a femme nearing 50. We better talk about it. We better enjoy it.
Absolutely a femme nearing 50. I love that.
Yeah, I'm getting close. Getting very, very, very close. And actually, I'm very proud of it.
Good. I mean, you know what? Staying alive this long in a world that does not want to foster our aliveness is
Ooh,
quite an
for,
accomplishment.
for anybody. And,
Mhm.
not to go deep within the first minute of the podcast, but, I grew up looking at the TV and news
Mhm.
about LGBTQ people dying.
Yes.
And literally thought when I was a 5-year-old kid, that's going to be me. I'll never make it to 50, you know? And
Yeah.
here I am close to it and I'm ready. I'm so ready. So
Uh,
excited. So
Jeffrey,
happy.
you're a Cancer born 7/7/77.
Yes, you remembered
I
magic.
I do. I mean, it's a portal day. Like, I mean, you really appeared.
I do what I can. Yeah.
Do you have like ideas of how you want to celebrate the lavish milestone of 5 decades?
Well, it is as much joking as I'm doing. It is a couple years from now, so I have some time to plan. And, it reminds me of when I was living at the monastery. And we had a special ceremony where we would meditate into New Year's Eve, into New Year's Day,
Mm.
as a way to sort of set the tone for the coming year. It was an extended meditation. And so I'll definitely do something spiritual to mark the next 5 decades of my life and what the tone's going to be. I haven't decided yet.
Oh, something spiritual though. I love that.
Mhm. Something intentional. That's what we
Yeah.
do.
Yes, absolutely. Especially with Cancer. Um, Jeffrey, do you know your other your moon and your rising?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
Can you help me with that
I can't
information
help you with
someday?
that. I will. I will. I'll get it. I'll
Okay.
get you on the text and I'll just come in every now and again. This is what happens with my friends is like once I have your astro data, I'll like just out of nowhere voice note you stuff like, "Hey, I was looking at your birth chart."
Please, please do. I need those voice notes. All I know, actually, speaking of magical, is that there are a bunch of sevens that followed me around my birth. So Jeffrey has 7 letters, and my dad's name has 7 letters. The farm I grew up on was in a place called Seven Valleys, Pennsylvania. There's a bunch of them. I weighed 7 pounds something at birth. So yeah, there was a lot of them.
Wow. And I was driving home today and on the way to do this podcast and I hit 7777 on my car and I was like, "Oh, I'm about to see Jeff."
Like your speedometer, your
Yeah,
odometer, the thing that
yeah,
counts
the
your,
little
yeah.
the mileage stuff. I'm always paying attention to numbers and sequence because I believe it's signs from spirit.
Mm,
It can be just a high five from the universe. It can be significant thing. Some people say like four specifically is like an angel number. I think seven is luck, but
mm.
it depends on which spiritual tradition you're in. But I think seven is an incredibly auspicious number, and like you're an incredibly auspicious human. So
Well, as much pain and crapola as I've had in my life, I do feel lucky, honestly.
yeah.
I feel lucky to care so much, you
Wow.
know?
Lucky to care. I mean, truly, the fact that you do care as a result on the other side of all that is a profound spiritual work.
Yeah, yeah, you're not kidding. Some nights where things get a little dicey absolutely come along with being able to get to the point where you can say, where is the gift
Mm,
in this when things happen in life?
yeah.
And it's big or small things, and being able to, gosh, I remember being, what should we say, 25, 30, and people would talk like that, and be like, oh, you had this horrible thing happen. Where's the gift in it? And I would want to, reach out and strangle them. So I'm very conscious, I'm not saying you have to get to that place, but I'm saying the ability to sit with things that require a lot of strength from us. And oh boy, we're in a time that requires a lot of strength from a lot of us.
Another cancer spiritual leader that I enjoy is Marianne Williamson. She was
Sure.
she was just talking about like this time that we're in right now. Just yesterday, she was like, it's pulling the adult out of us. And
Mm,
I think that I was really sitting with that language. I was like, wow. Because like a lot of us are, running around unconsciously, letting our wounded children run the show. And
sure. Some people in politics do that.
it turns out, like,
Turns out you could get elected to office doing that.
yeah, it's bonkers to me like how much the billionaires are working together these days, and yet we
Mm,
still don't have a general strike. I'm like, we can be working together, but
we can
they,
be organizing for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. I mean, and I think we are, but not enough yet. So,
The I wrote about this in both of my books. The spiritual teacher, Sherry is her name,
mhm.
that studied Soto Zen under for gosh, 25 years. She used to say almost nobody wants to grow up.
Yes,
And so maybe Marianne is really hinting that this is the time we're going to grow up together and we're going to take some adult responsibility for healing the world and healing ourselves and working together and being kind and what is that Gandhi quote? Be the change you
yeah,
want to see. We're going to
yeah.
start doing that.
Yeah, I used to like, it's really important to have like a mission statement or like, guiding principles in your life. And like early on, I was like, I want to make the world safe for people to love themselves. And then eventually I realized I can't make the world do anything. I all I want to do is like model love and grace. Like now I say I help people regard themselves with love and grace. And it used to be about bodies, but it's really about your whole self. And
Mhm.
because I
That's
know
why we like each other so much.
I think we really are like
Very similar mission we
yes,
have.
absolutely. God, I have to say, I was telling Jeffrey this when we first got on the Zoom that I just like seeing your face, like just lit me up in a way where, like Mr. Rogers says, in times of trouble, look around at the helpers, and like that's your face, the helpers, out there just.
I gotta tell you, I've not felt so needed in a long time. It's lovely. It's really like, because sometimes you're like preaching and that's, the world is not just not in the place, right?
Mhm.
But sometimes the mission you have and the preaching you have to do, it's like a key in a lock. It's like, oh, yeah, loving yourself, loving each other. Yes, let's do that. Let's learn how to do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, for those who are interested in that.
Yeah, and like and people need it. Like and I think there's something to like the steadiness of being willing to be a visionary in times when like it doesn't feel like you're popular, Like and
Mm.
there's like things come and go, but like I think when you're really mission driven and heart driven, like it doesn't really matter like what the reception is. It matters to do it anyway.
As we established, I'm well on the top side of 45 years old. Put it that way. We're barreling toward 50, and that means that I've been doing this for a long time. And I was first known on Vine. But it is like an EKG. You have these moments of popularity, but also valleys.
Mhm.
So you have the peaks of popularity, but also valleys. It goes like any career, it goes up and down. Mine went, spiked through Vine, spiked through Twitter, spiked through Instagram, and then through TikTok. And gosh, what's next? We don't know. But you have to know what your mission is to be able to survive all of that, honestly. Because even when you're at a peak, you need to have the strength not to be pulled off of your mission. in
Yes.
those times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your character is really built in the valleys, right? Like the between
Mm.
points, like the parts where you really have to just like figure out how you're gonna get through it. Um, Jeffrey, I like to start
Not that anybody's doing that these days or anything.
God. I like to start business in the front on the podcast, and so I'm curious, how can people work with you? I know, I mean, you're an internet sensation, but also you do offer a lot of cool ways that people can work with you.
Yes, indeed. Workshops, coaching, et cetera, et cetera. The one-on-one and the one-to-group. JeffreyMarsh.com is your place to go to look at all of that, and you'll see my story there. And I would love to hear from folks and love to connect. And you can coach with me. So it's one of the most fulfilling parts of my life and career.
It really is like seeing the one of my favorite things is challenging folks to take my aerobics class for 12 weeks in a row.
Mm,
Because I see a tremendous change in people. Like, it's I mean, I can't tell you what area of your life will improve, but something will level up because you show up just 12 times in a 12-week period. It's wild. It's so cool.
that is so funny you should mention that. I have a 3-month coaching package. That is what I generally do with folks. And you know this already just from requiring the 12 weeks. Folks are excited in the beginning and they're going to get there. And then there's like a slump, and you have to find your strength and your focus. And then by the time you get to the end of that package, you have built that foundation of who you are, what you want to be doing, where you want to be headed. So making a package for that long, and in your case, requiring a 12-week commitment is stellar.
Yeah.
You
It,
couldn't make it, half the length or a quarter of the length because it wouldn't build the strength.
no,
So,
yeah. And then
yeah.
getting the opportunity to see people over years, like, um,
Mm.
really show up for themselves. That's so cool. I love it.
I'm selfish. I don't know if you're selfish. I mean, mostly I do the work I do to be inspired and to be around cool people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like, I
I hope others get benefit.
I'm grateful other people get benefit. Like, listen, I love talking to my friends. Like, I made a podcast about it. Like,
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
teaching aerobics. I love getting to do that and just radiate like whatever it is, the beautiful spirit that comes through me while I'm teaching these classes and helping people dance together. It's like such a gift. It's my favorite thing to do. And like, if my class has one person in it or a hundred's about the max I ever want. But like it's
Mhm.
so just extraordinary, the energy and the experience. It's so fun.
And it keeps me at the top of my spiritual game,
Absolutely.
for lack of a better way to phrase it. So it's not just being inspired, meeting cool people, having fun. I enjoy what I do, all of that. But I want to be as sharp as a what tack in my spirituality, taking care of myself. So being able to help other people focus is like, the teachers have the best jam when it comes to the spiritual life
Yes,
I've
and
experienced.
the biggest responsibility. Like I even
Mm,
got that message just this weekend from
mm,
my spirit team when I was meditating, like because I vibrated really high in aerobics and then I had like a real crash and like I needed a salt bath and all of that. They were like, if you want to vibrate this high, like you need to create a vessel that can hold it. And so it means, how I nourish myself and like all of the care and the care. I mean, I'm caring for myself at a level now that I never had before, and it's like just barely cutting it these times.
I mean, it's like a dump truck of self-love. And that can be not enough sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's okay. What I really loved in what you were saying is, do you want to vibrate that high? It's not like, I want to phrase this very particularly. You know what it is? when I was at the monastery, we used to talk about you'll have a heart opening experience, and then whatever that dark force is will try to regain control and close your heart down again. So there is this opening and closing until you learn to care for yourself all through the arc of that spiritual growth. And part of it is for me, because I was also in a band, I was a cabaret performer, you would give these amazing shows and you're on top of the world, and then you're in your dressing room alone after the show, and the heart starts to close down, the voices in your head start to come back and try to tell you what you did wrong and how this and that and the other, and learning to recognize, oh, okay, I am willing. That's what I heard in what you said. I am willing to be both the high and the low, the forward and the sometimes it seems backwards. I'm willing to be here and do it.
Yeah. And I learned so much in the lows too. Like I was thinking about like just the challenges I was feeling in my body this weekend, and I was like, at least it's giving me empathy for folks who have challenges in their bodies way more than I do, and like and like figuring out how I can like care for myself anyway, and like how I can modify my schedule and my life to like match what my body needs, and like you never know what you're going through. Like this is my favorite thing to tell myself when I'm in the midst of like having to really battle the voices and like really going through some pain is like I can't wait to teach from this experience.
Oh, what a great mantra. I mean, yes. I often tell myself, like, I can't wait to write about this. It's going to go in the next book
Hmm.
because I don't know about you. I desperately wanted to mean something. And of course, mean something wonderful, right? And,
That's an important caveat.
you know, and generally, and I am not joking around, generally it has. But I can trust that there will be a point, there will be a moment where things become clearer. And if I can hold on, do my self-care tools, take good care, have those favorite snacks, see people I love, if I can do those things that support this human being, I can make it to a place where things start to make sense again.
Yes. And it's just one foot in front of the other.
Mhm.
Yeah. Jeffrey, it's time for a word from our sponsors.
Yes. Who's your sponsor?
My sponsor, Jeffrey, is my Patreon page.
Yeah.
A collective of humans who value the work that I put out in the world. It's Patreon, patreon.com/FKDP, which stands for Fat Kid Dance Party, my aerobics class for anyone who feels left behind by mainstream fitness. If you've ever been called too much, too fat, or felt too awkward to dance, mine is the supportive class for you. I have so much available.
So
uh,
much fun.
Thank you. It is so much fun, and there's so much available in there, including some spiritual self-care teachings I do because a lot of my self-care work is wrapped into my spirituality, and it's just something I
Mm,
figured out over time. And I taught a whole series on that for Patreon, and I have on-demand videos. You would love this. I just did a Madonna class, a low-tempo Madonna dance class.
oh,
Yeah. So
so not like Ray of Light or any of the high tempo.
we did Hung Up and Burning Up, which are both like they
Yeah,
high tempo, but you can dance them low medium tempo. But
yeah, that's great.
yeah, so there's a lot in there. And someday I'll do a Madonna class with you in person. It'll be really fun.
I would love it.
Yeah, I feel like you're just the perfect person to swirl around to.
Me and swirling, done. It's
Yeah,
over.
truly, truly.
I'm there.
Yeah. Jeffrey, I have so much to
Wait, are
ask.
you transitioning out of the ad?
Transitioning out of the ad, our sponsor,
Spell it again. You
Patreon.
spelled it at the beginning. Spell it again.
Great. Patreon.com/FKDP.
Okay. Great.
And so back to the episode. Um,
Mhm.
I wanted, okay, so you already mentioned being a Vine sensation. And I really think that like right now the internet is going through such I mean, people are, this is from one of my Fat Kid Dance Party class regulars, Brian,
Yeah.
who said he's trying to de-billionaire his life. And so I feel like the social media
Mhm.
landscape is changing again. And sometimes like I walked away from putting my attention on Instagram. So like I'm not consuming there. And that felt very important. I've spent probably 30 minutes on Instagram in the last month, which is like, probably 0.1% of how much I spent in December on Instagram. So it's interesting, like just feeling this, and every now and again I get this glimmer of like kind of excitement that like we're in a frontier time. And I'm just curious, like for you, what was the experience of like having blown up on Vine and then like have Vine kind of go away? And
Kind of go away. You mean like we got a week's notice and Twitter was like, boop, pull the plug on
yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, so Vine existed and we were all on there, and then Twitter bought Vine, and then Vine was shut down by Twitter. And that all happened like you think I'm joking. It really was about a week's notice, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it
We
was
had
so,
no time. It was
yeah.
we were all like texting each other. We were like, Go download your archive. Go get it somewhere, put it on a disk." It was 2013, back in the days of beauty, and it was, well, I'll frame that by talking about today, since you brought it up.
Yeah.
As a visibly, so if there are people who are listening and not looking at the video, as a visibly queer influencer, because I have facial hair and eyeshadow,
Really
and
good eyeshadow, by the way.
say that again.
Really good eyeshadow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard you the first time. I just wanted to hear it twice.
You know what? Thanks for asking for what you need.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just demonstrating what we do. So, as a visibly queer influencer, it is very much like I need another person to run the social media.
Mhm.
And on Vine, I used to read comments and be more engaged, and that just mental health wise, that was not good,
Yeah.
not smart. But I learned not to do it. And so I generally don't even consume from friends through
Mhm.
social media. I am aware of what folks are doing, and I have subscriptions turned on my Instagram, for example, and stuff like that. So there are places where people who are the lovers can find me and interact when they need to. And I've had this revolution in my relationship with it as well. It is a beautiful tool, and it can be one of the most evil places on earth.
Yes.
So we need to be conscious of what we're doing. And that's what I project everybody is into for the last, let's say, couple months. Someone is, people are choosing, especially LGBTQ people and trans people that I know, are choosing what gets in, how, who they're going to connect with, and then what they are going to post, what they're going to contribute. It's all been, that's sort of what Marianne was talking about, right? It's sort of been this maturing of how am I going to participate in that social media, which is what you described.
Yeah. How am I going to participate? What's next? What's happening? Who knows? I'm so curious to see how this is going to work out.
Well, and because I've done, four of them, as I mentioned,
Yeah.
had a following, a large following on four different platforms. There comes a time where things change, and Twitter never went away, but a lot of LGBTQ people went away from Twitter for obvious reasons.
Yes.
So that one didn't, wasn't shut down like Vine was, but there just comes a time when that platform is not the place to be
Yeah.
anymore. And it's time, like you said, like frontier, like what's going to be next? How are we going to meet people and help people next?
Yeah. I look forward to seeing how that happens. And Also just kind of trust. It feels, I don't know, I'm feeling like this 90s riot grrl insurgents, like zine
Hmm.
times, like where you just physically hand someone a zine and you're like, this is going to change your life. Like, because you never
Put
know.
up stickers, wheat
Yeah.
paste.
Yes,
Yeah.
wheat paste.
Yeah. We should get back into it.
Yes, absolutely. And okay, I also wanted to talk to you about this because this is actually a concept I learned from you, which is that attention is an actual human need. Like it's not something to pathologize. It's literally
Sounds
something.
simple, but people forget.
Yeah, and all people's personalities require different things, and some people do not want or like attention, can't relate, don't understand. But I recognize there are people that are different, right? So attention is a human need. Will you talk about that?
Sure. I have to go on a little detour that may seem unrelated, but I'll bring it back around. Often because I do spiritual work and because I help people and I coach people and travel the world and help people have experiences of self-kindness on a very deep level, it often people want to wrangle me in an intellectual debate about whether there are inherently evil people. And not being an inherently evil person, like are people inherently good at their core or are they not, right? That kind of philosophical debate. And not being an inherently evil person, I really don't know. I honestly don't know. And I choose to assume that there are people who are way, 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 way out on the other side of deluded that do actions that hurt many other people. Now, implied in what I just said is that I do think inherently human beings are born good, all of us. But I called it a choice because that is how I help myself survive, get up the next day, do the work that I need to do. And by deluded, I'll also just say distant from their own heart, distant from their needs, distant from other human beings, can't see the humanity in themselves or others, which is a delusion. We are humans, we're connected. But to answer your question, to me, one of the fundamentally most important things that any human being can do is craft community. Almost all of us learned as little kids. Ooh, I don't know. Do I want that blanket of a statement? Yeah, yes, I do.
I think that's good.
Almost all of us learned as kids, don't bother people. Don't burden your parents. Don't talk about your emotions. I don't need help. I don't need anybody for anything. Me over here, oh, I'm fine. I mean, it will ring in my ears forever. When I was about 20 years old, my mom said, "You were always so brave." And I didn't say it in the moment, but I want to say, "Mom, why didn't you help me have a life where I didn't have to be brave? What were you doing? Where were you?" Glad you admired my bravery, but I really would have rather, been able to let the facade of being brave down sometimes and be vulnerable. And that's the last point I want to make. You do not get the good stuff, the connection, the community without being vulnerable.
Yes.
People would rather project strength, I think, in many different ways, fake strength in many different ways, than have real connections with people. And that's a shame.
Yeah, all intimacy is a result of vulnerability.
All connection, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because I think so learning about attention as a human need and like realizing that like I'm like, okay, so there is like a need that gets scratched, right? Like by being out there, right? And like, like put dancing in the forest videos on the internet because I like dancing and I like sharing the forest with other people and I know it delights people. But then I also really like the attention. Like I like, feeling like, oh, I showed up and someone noticed. You know what I mean? But like in this time where I'm like shifting my attention away from Instagram, and part of that is like not looking at statistics at all. Like I think one of the
Mhm.
ways Mark Zuckerberg made Instagram stories for creators so addicting is putting like you can see who sees you. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, look at all this attention I got. You know what I mean? And like, so like taking myself away from that because I realized like how addicted I was to just the stories part of it and just trying to figure out how do I meet that need? Because like so my teacher Leah Garza says people are inherently good and all behavior is a result of unmet needs. So I've been really thinking about like what are my unmet needs.
Oh boy, there are some people with a lot of unmet needs.
So many unmet needs. It's sad. Like people who have like more money than anybody else, right? Like these billionaires, and it's never enough for them. That's the saddest part is like you'll never be satisfied because they don't choose to do the spiritual work to help find
Mm,
satisfaction and like figure out what those needs are. And like wealth is just a more comfortable form of misery. And I know a lot of people who don't have any money who are incredibly happy people.
hmm.
Um,
Yes.
yeah.
To draw the line even more specifically,
Hmm.
when you were talking about attention, I was thinking about intimate one-on-one, family, close friends, right?
Hmm.
But there's also, I'm a showbiz
the
kid.
the attention you can also
I
get from strangers in an audience.
I majored in musical theater, and so many people comment. This is for any, LGBTQ person on the internet. And I would imagine it happens on your channel all the time. But people say you're doing it for the attention, as if that's an insult, and I'm supposed to feel some sort of guilt and shame for that. But the honest truth is, of course I am. Just like you, just like you said, of course I'm doing it for the attention because I like attention. Now tell me what's wrong with that.
Yeah.
And there's no answer. There's
It's
nothing wrong with that. We
yeah,
all love it,
anytime someone's pointing a finger, right, like there's three pointing back at them. And so I feel
right?
sad for that person that they're not getting the attention that they need.
Of course. So much so that they would want to tear someone else down
Yeah.
for being able to achieve the thing that they desperately want.
Ugh. It's heartbreaking and yet like, I can't let myself be held back by the opinions of strangers on the internet. Even the opinions of people who are very close to me. Like some of those people, like,
Sure, let's talk about that too. Yeah.
yeah, it's really hard to I don't know. I think it's hard to be a human in the world amongst other humans who are wounded and trying to wound other people. And I think when you become a cycle breaker, right? Like maybe in our families, maybe just in society, right? Like you take on um it's so interesting how much growth I've had to do and how much mental health support I've needed from being famous on the internet in even a small way. And like,
Mm.
because the onslaught of what people think, like, is so much. And so I just get every year over year, I get more curated about whose opinion matters in this and really discerning about that. And like, it's sad when you got to let people go, but you know, Tiger Cat 69 on the internet. I can't care what you think.
Let alone Patriot 1907.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't fathom the life I used to live where I was not able to discern that whose opinion matters. And ultimately, it's mine, right? But there are those folks that you trust, that you listen to carefully, and to be able to take in their reactions on something, a project or whatever, without allowing self-hate to hijack the whole process. I mean, that is a skill set none of us were taught
Yeah.
ever. So feedback generally is immobilizing and demoralizing for people.
Yeah. And like to figure out where you can get feed forward, people who
Mm,
like really care about you, but like will be honest with you. Because I think a lot of
mm,
folks like, create an echo chamber around themselves to support their terrible behavior. And like, because they don't want to witness like and so it's like they chop out the people who are honest with them. And so like finding that like resilience place where like you have the right people in your inner circle to like help you like when you're on a peak, right? Like when you're on a peak, like you want the right people who are going to tell you if you're effing up, right? And
mm,
but even still, the attention need, back to the attention need. What I've noticed is like, I don't need like a ton of attention. I like the stage stuff. I love being on stage. And I'm so grateful when I have that opportunity. And I recognize like it still doesn't have to be a huge crowd for it to be satisfying. Like even just like kind of shifting how I was doing like my kind of day-to-day content creation stuff to like going on Discord and having that there and just having like 3 to 5 people like around feels like it's scratching the same itch that I was getting when I had like
mm.
1,000 to 2,500 people looking at my stories views, which that was pre 2020 numbers. Like social media is so different than it once was. But
Yeah, you're not kidding.
yeah.
You're not kidding. It's always changing. They're, tweaking their algorithms to get what they would like. Yeah, we used to, amongst ourselves on TikTok, we talked about what it's like to go viral on the dark side of TikTok,
Oh,
that your content gets used to keep people angry and engaged uh, in the social media sphere. And we actually talked, openly, at least the influencer friends that I had, about, well, do I want to be used that way?
yeah.
Like, is it could be part of the mission that you're opening minds if you possibly could, but it's also like, do I want more money going into so and so's pocket at the expense of my safety and maybe my mental health? And so those are the things that we're always balancing in the social media world, for sure.
How do you maintain resilience when those things are happening? Because you're a very like viral person, like there's something very like charismatic and
Go
magical about
on.
you. Yes, absolutely. There's something very charismatic and magical about you, Jeffrey. And
Uh-huh.
which is virality, right? And like,
Yeah.
and cancel culture is a form of virality, which is really devastating. And like
Mm,
especially when you come to things with like the intention to do good and then people are tearing you down and telling you you're not perfect. Or I will say like I definitely had a lot of growth work to do around like being told I wasn't getting things right um
mm,
on the internet and getting dragged for it and like just and trusting like my own intention that I'm just doing my best, like always. And I'm curious for you, like how you maintain your resilience and your commitment to continue showing up for the people who lovingly adore you versus like the getting dark side of the internet dragged viral.
yeah, and I can be ultra specific. There's this is gonna sound funny, I guess. It's gonna sound odd, but my channel's not a political channel. I have talked about, trans rights and being non-binary, and part of my jam is being out and proud myself. But that is just a spiritual metaphor to me. It's not necessarily politics. I veered very much into like talking certain times, not often over my decade, but certain times talk about a specific politician or that sort of thing. But generally, it's not a political space. And what that means is the reason I bring that up is I get a lot of criticism from the right, obviously, for being LGBTQ, and they don't like that. But also like the far left over how I've posted about or not, you know, how I've approached certain subjects, right? And then also, I've gotten people within the LGBTQ and trans community that try to say you're setting the movement back. Why don't you look this way instead of this way? Why don't you talk about this instead of that?
Yeah.
And the thing that I always come back to that gives me great comfort, which you were sort of hinting at, if this person, and I don't know what's in their heart or mind, but if a specific person is activated by me needing to be perfect, what I project onto them is quite a lot of internal need to be perfect for themselves.
Mm.
And I'm being extra gracious. And generally, this is where I get to, but it's not universal. I mean, people want to ruin your life and they want to people, on in the religious right, for example, want to ruin my life and bomb threats and death threats and all that sort of thing. And there's just some of the ugliest human behavior coming from that side of things.
I will say I've seen the same ugly behavior from the far left as from the far right. I have been in various different, firestorms of opinions, and I'm getting the same comments from people who hold,
Mm,
quote, different ideologies. And I'm like, but you're all just coming from the same kind of abuse. Like,
mm.
anyway.
Your experience of it was very horseshoe. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
the I'm a lefty liberal and I'm a softy, and I project quite a lot of suffering onto to anybody who would want to threaten someone because they feel so energized by any topic, period.
Hmm.
And I'm proud to be in a space where my only reaction that I feel any magnetism toward is to be kind. And often that means withdrawing. So I'm not going to like take someone's comment and like highlight it and, talk about it unless it's from a place of kindness. But generally, the kindest thing I can think of to do is to let it go and try to spend time with the folks that do like me.
It's so simple.
So simple. Needs to be said though in this day and age, huh?
Not easy, but it's simple.
It's really like, oh, you should love yourself. It's like, yeah, everybody knows that. Not not easy to do. Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes, and I don't remember who said it, but our ability to love others is to the level that we can love the hardest parts of ourselves to love. And so, like, the more work I do to just like, it's a little tip that I love to give at aerobics actually is when you're doing something that you know is like self-harm or like isn't great for you, give yourself a big hug. Just love yourself through it because like that, like even feeling support for yourself while while you're behaving in a way that isn't actually supportive is like such a revolution in deepening how much we can love ourselves.
Oh, pick a pattern as an example. What is somebody's issue?
Oh man. I'll say like if I'm, having reverse bedtime procrastination, like I know how terrible I feel when I'm tired. Like
Hmm.
yeah, as one is approaching 50. Your
I
body
mean, the middle-aged relationship with sleep, that's a whole nother, we could do a whole nother episode on that.
truly, truly. Yeah.
But if it's like I have a set bedtime and I just keep going past it and past it is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what folks, to drop a spiritual truth on everyone, what folks don't often know or seems counterintuitive because of the way we've been programmed, no pattern will change without full acceptance of that pattern. Not a thing is going to change until you can go through the pattern with an open heart and mind, non-judgmentally toward yourself. So it is a shock if I'm working with a coaching client and I say, for the next week, you're going to procrastinate at bedtime, but you're going to do it in a kind way. And you're going to journal, you're going to take some notes about it. You're going to blow past your bedtime, and you're just going to look and assume that you're a good person. Nothing changes without that kind of acceptance, that deep level of acceptance.
Yeah.
Nobody's actually self-hated themselves into being a better person. It has not happened. Will
If
never
only,
happen.
if only you could beat yourself up to success, I would be so successful right now,
Me, I would be world president.
right?
Yeah.
Um, Instead, you have to build yourself up to success. And if you're not instilled by caregivers who teach you how to have that voice in your head that
Mhm.
like is building you up and like, reminding you how wonderful you are and what a gift you are. Like, I'm a big Brandy Carlisle fan. And in her autobiography, Broken Horses, she talks about her grandma Dolores, who like just was like, "You're chosen. You have such an amazing voice. You're here for a reason." And like Brandy had survived meningitis when she was 4 years old, and she's like, "You survived for a reason." Like, so she had that voice installed in her, and I'm like, Brandy built herself up to like to success. Like that is a hard won success story, and I am just obsessed with her grandma Dolores. Like for that, and I can't reverse how I was raised, right? But I can be my own grandma Dolores, just learn how to be my own cheerleader and how to, sometimes I just pep talk myself while I'm walking around. I'm like, you're doing so great. Like, way to go.
Me all the time, as constantly as I can. And you remind me, a decade ago, I was on Newsmax, which was it's a news network, obviously. Everybody knows. But I was the first non-binary person to talk about our story, right? On TV. And they wanted to use it against me and they wanted to use it for, bad and whatever else. And I didn't realize all of this and that it was going to be an antagonistic place. But as soon as I got there and I realized I'm sitting in the chair on the set and there's a desk. If anybody's done cable news in person, you know that like all the sets are like, I'm at a table, I'm official. So there's this desk between us. The host is on that side and I'm on this side, and the cameras are not rolling yet. We're doing live to tape, which means you just tape it. It airs later, but you don't stop. So it's like it's live in quotes.
Mhm.
And there are these, lights on top of the cameras, and none of the lights are on. So we know none of the cameras are rolling. And I'm sitting across from the host, and he's, saying rude stuff. And I'm just sitting there. The makeup person's touching up my makeup. The sound person's getting us done. And I'm saying to myself with eyes closed, I love you. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for doing this. We're going to go get pizza after this at a favorite New York City vegan pizza place. We're going to go get pizza. We're going to have fun. I'm so happy to be doing this with you. And then ding, the light goes on top of the camera and you're in it. I try to talk to myself like that anytime, every time, all the time. And it's like messy, who's talking to who, but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I don't care. I just want to live in that place.
And you
And to
deserve,
be honest, to survive, to do what I do, I have to.
yeah. And you deserve to live in that place, and so does everybody else.
Amen.
Yeah. What's your favorite vegan pizza place in New York City?
Sadly, it's not there anymore. And so I don't want anyone to get sad. Everything changes in New York.
It sure does.
Everything changes in the world.
All the
We could have an episode about that. Yeah.
it's in that the constant letting go. Like I I think I don't know if I was just raised with the delusion that things don't change, or
Mm,
like I just like got felt safe because of that idea that things don't change. But it took me so many years to like absorb and appreciate the fact that like, oh, this moment we have right now, this is all we have. Like all we have is this moment, and like things are going to change and evolve and shift. And, even just in these last few years, getting to live in the forest and like observing every day how something is always different and like it's never the same, but then like the appreciation for like the old trees who are still there and like the stalwart
mm.
the things, Saturday Night Live just turned 50 years old. What TV show is 50 years old? That's nuts. But how great for them,
The Simpsons almost, right?
that's true.
But
My
not quite 50.
One of my favorite things my mom ever said when I was 10 years old is she refused to buy me a Bart Simpson t-shirt because she's like, that show's going to be canceled in 2 years, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
I could have put it on eBay.
she did buy me a Bart Simpson t-shirt for my 42nd birthday. So, she finally made good.
In a way, that makes up for it. So that's good.
So funny. Um, Jeffrey, I also wanted to talk to you about going no contact with family because I know you both have experience and wisdom around that.
I
And
sure do.
I'm curious.
I was kind of famous for it for a while on TikTok.
Oh, you got TikTok famous for going no contact?
Yeah, there are these certain themes your channel goes through. And for a while, I was the hashtag no contact person.
Wow. What advice do you have for people who are like thinking about going no contact?
Well, the first thing you're going to encounter is a tidal wave of guilt. That is natural. Ultimately, you got to take a look, you got to sit with it, you got to be in meditation, you got to be open to it. You got to take a look if your motivation is that you truly would like to take care of yourself. If there's a scrap of bitterness, do your best to clear that stuff out before you make the ultimate decision.
Mm,
Doesn't have to be perfect, but what you want if you're going to go no contact is cleanliness.
mm,
You want it to be clear, you want to be settled in your own heart, and you want it to be a letting go that doesn't feel sticky so that you can then grieve. And again, it's not about being perfect. It's just that the energy has to be yours so that when you make the decision, you can heal yourself and not be still stuck in the situation. And of course, if you are stuck, if you're in a place of stuck, then be kind to yourself then too. But what you're going for is really drilling down on what it is that you hope to have happen.
What do you suggest for people with guilt? Because I feel like that comes up a lot too, like not just with going no contact, but also just with boundaries and people pleasing and all of that kind of stuff.
When guilt arises, this is the first exercise I like to do with people. When guilt arises, you just have to write down a journal about it, please. Make a list of what kind of person you would be if you did it.
Mm,
You're considering going no contact. It feels toxic. You want out of there. You can't stand it. It's heavy on your life. It's causing you to bring in other people. Do you know this one? It's like other people have to help you heal every time after you talk to your mother. Just to pick an example out of the blue. You get off the phone with your mother and you immediately need to call a friend because you need to heal from that experience. These are signs, right? But you feel this incredible wave of guilt when you think about going no contact. And I would want you to write at the top of your journal page, going no contact with my mother makes me a person who, colon,
mm.
this, is mean, is the terrible person, is ungrateful. It, you know, get all the stuff out. And then, of course, look over your list and make sure that that's actually what it makes you.
Yeah, my therapist would say, is it true?
I mean, to cut to the chase, is it true? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question. That's a Zen question right there.
I mean, a lot of how we feel in the outset, like those first feelings are what we're programmed to feel. Because we're very much programmed to have like a patriarch in our head, a cop in our head, like
Hmm.
thing our behavior. And of course, like, there's a distinction between being kind and being nice, which we've talked about before, but I just,
Yeah.
will you give it to us, the distinction between being kind and being nice?
Well, the way I see it nowadays is kind is more unconditional. Nice may have an agenda behind it about getting a good grade, getting a high mark. Kind is given freely like a fountain that never ends. That's how we tell the difference.
Yeah.
And by the way, you want to be kind to yourself, not nice to yourself, too.
Yeah. I think there's something that's like very heart-led about being kind. Um, I like a creator I love is My Leak Teal, and she said, put honey on your words, and
Mhm.
just learning like a lot of, and I've been thinking a lot about like cutting people off and like, going no contact, not just with like family, but like, certain friendships that need to dissolve.
Sure.
And just recognizing where usually my breaking point is around people's abusive communication. It's like I know your heart isn't to wound, and yet that's what your words and your behavior are doing. And I can't continue to put myself in that firing line and be kind to myself. And so, like, you always have to choose yourself, always, because that's the vessel you're running, and it's heartbreaking a lot of times to have to make choices. But I don't know. I listen to my intuition now, but like I went no contact with both of my parents in my 20s. And it's really funny because I think about like I went through this recent thing where I was like, I should have dropped out of high school, like because like all of the higher education I got, I didn't need for the things I'm doing in the world, and I could have, developed and learned what I needed by experience. And but I was playing this like overachiever perfectionist, like going to school, making everyone in my family feel like, oh, Bevin's fine because she's getting all this education, she'll be quote successful. But then like I ultimately still didn't want to talk to my parents because I didn't have this consciousness, but I didn't feel safe with them, either of them, in my 20s. And like my relationship with my mom is, I think, one of my greatest successes in life. It's not the quote success I was raised to believe, but like, the fact that like we've been able to change our family dynamics and find harmony in a relationship that we fought like, two out of every three conversations we would have in my teens and 20s. And so like I would just like take my power back by just not being in contact. And we didn't have hashtags back then, and we didn't have hashtag no contact. I just was like, not talking to them, and not answering the phone.
Yes. Yes. Because something was fundamentally broken for you.
Yeah.
And you went through a process with mom of repairing that
Yes.
and communicating about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the other thing to remember is that it doesn't have to be permanent. You don't have to think of going no contact as a permanent thing. People cycle and people change. And if someday you change your mind, that's your prerogative.
Yeah. And sometimes when I'm going through a really hard mental health time, I'm a big isolator. That's like it tends to be. I just go in my little Scorpio moon hidey hole and like, hide away. And
Mhm.
but and I recognize that in myself, and that's just a thing I need to do to feel safe in those moments. And but it doesn't have to be permanent. And when I'm feeling vulnerable like that, I just have to be on my own. But I recognize the people, and I'm so grateful for the people for with whom I can feel safe no matter what. And like once you're hitting the 5 decades of life, like you recognize how special those friendships are.
Mm. That's a good thing about getting old. I mean, I really have less energy to try to be schlepping around doing stuff I don't need to do. you know?
Amen.
I've less, the candle, there's no wick at both ends anymore, let alone I could burn the candle at both ends anymore.
Truly.
So, and
Truly.
that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. And it is also, it's bonkers to me to think that at any point in my life I was able to stay up all night and like get stuff done and like still function. I
Mhm.
truly cannot. I'm unable to. Unable to
Mhm.
be resilient to like an onslaught of abusive communication. Like I have no regrets about the people I've gone no contact with because of their abusive communication. Like I'm like,
That's a really wonderful thing because you go through a basic map,
mhm.
which to help people feel less alone, you start off with, well, oh, what's this no contact thing? Oh, no, no, I could never do that. And then you go to, well, maybe. I mean, what would that be like if I, no, no, I'm not that kind of person. I don't want to, I can't do that to my own father. I'm not that kind of person. And then it starts to roll toward, oh, I guess I have to, but I'm going to avoid it. And then eventually, for those of us who are lucky, it gets to, I'm going to. And then, as you're pointing out, you do it, you take care of yourself, you stabilize, it gets further in the rear view mirror, and you begin to treasure the time you have not being tied to that particular relationship. And that's the part people forget is that you can get to a place where it rests in your heart as the absolute right decision that you could have made at the time.
Yeah. Oh, and the wisdom of experience and looking back and kind of just recognizing, yeah, it was hard at the time. And I couldn't picture. This is the thing about uncertainty is like we don't know what's going to happen, right? Like, and so, but great things can happen if we give space for them. But if we clutter our
That is kind of what's implied. I mean, if we don't know, it could be good.
there's always good things that are possible, and we spend so much of our very potent mental energy worrying about things. And
Yeah.
every time I worry about stuff, I just remind myself what's good that's possible instead out of this. And it is so liberating. Um, Jeffrey, to close us out, um,
Yes.
what
I
is
felt that energy. Did you feel that energy? I was like, oh, it's getting to be the time.
it's getting to be the time? What is delighting you these days? Like, what is really like sparking your joy?
Um, HD episodes of The Golden Girls on the Hallmark Channel. That is delighting me.
Wow, specifically on the Hallmark Channel.
Specific because they're the only place on earth that you can see them in HD
Oh,
because they were filmed on tape instead of on film. And
uh-huh.
not to get too technical, but that means that the highest possible, you could do is 480p.
Okay.
But they have some magic AI that reworked all the episodes, and so you get to see B. Arthur's face and look and makeup, and you get to see Rue McClanahan's dress. You get to see it all in high def, and I have to recommend it to everyone.
Okay, Jeffrey. My mom and her wife have Hallmark, like whatever you pay for Hallmark on the,
Hallmark Plus or whatever they call it.
yeah, whatever they call it on their big TV. And I will watch The Golden Girls knowing that Hallmark has some magic HD. I can't wait.
You have to, and in the as they air it in the corner is the letters HD, so you know you got the real stuff.
The real deal. I love it. Oh, I can't wait. Um, Jeffrey Marsh, thank you for being my
What's delighting you? You didn't answer.
Oh, thank you for turning the tables on me. What's delighting me? Time with friends. It really
Mm,
is like I don't have a huge social battery these days. I need a lot of rest. I need a lot of downtime. I need a lot of solo time with nature. Um,
mhm,
but when I get the chance to be with friends, it is like just it doesn't even have to be major. You know what I mean? Like getting to be with I'm gonna go on vacation with one of my dearest friends, Rachel, soon. And like she and I can just sit in silence together and like do nothing together. And it just feels so good to be with her, you know? And
mm.
like that to me, it's Do you just recognize in life that like the times you actually get to spend with the people you love, it's just like these little blips in your life. And so that's really the
Can
most
you tell
thing.
everyone where you're going or give a hint?
I've never been on a cruise before. We're going on a cruise.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really lovely,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. And Rachel's
Yeah.
corporate, so she got us this like a balcony room. So I'm really looking forward to it. I don't
Yay.
care where we're going. I just am excited to sit with my bestie on a balcony and look at the ocean.
Amen. And is it going to be like cold area or a warm area? Or
Warm
you
area. I need it
warm area?
right now.
Great. We all need it.
Yes, absolutely. We do all need it. And, from the bottom of
Plug
my,
the Patreon one more time.
oh, patreon.com/FKDP stands for Fat Kid Dance Party.
Sounds like a fun community over there.
It's a fantastic community, actually, really center self-care. And it's people of all sizes. Like, I mean, it says fat in the title because I center fat people in movement, which I think is unusual, but
Mhm.
mostly it's just for anybody who wants to regard themselves with love and grace and is willing to believe that all bodies are good bodies.
Yeah, to me, Fat Kid Dance Party has always been inclusive
Yeah.
of all kinds of body types and all kinds of people.
Yeah.
It's just that that name says it all
Thank you. Thank you
about
for
how we're going to celebrate, you know?
yeah. When I first did it, I over explained. I put a subtitle on it and then I realized, oh, I'm over explaining. I can drop that.
Fat Kid Dance Party, colon. This is actually for everyone. You actually don't have to be fat to be attending this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like that. Jeffrey, will you plug the way that people can interact with you again as well?
Yes, jeffreymarsh.com. Since we're talking about how social media changes all the time, you can find me over on TikTok and Instagram, but it is truly the website is the deal these days.
It is, I think it's all about like where I call it my digital real estate, and like where you put your little flag. And it's like you can always find me here.
Yeah,
A hug on the internet. Um, I love you so much, Jeffrey. Thank you for being here.
delight to talk to you, as always.
Yay. Let's do it again soon.
Got it.